In this video, I'm talking about how every time you take a 10-day Vipassana course by S.N. Goenka, even though you're following the exact same program every time you go, you're going to have a unique and different experience each time, and you're also going to receive a unique set of benefits or results from your efforts. This is going to be a long video, so if you don't want to watch the whole thing from beginning to end, look in the video description. I'm going to put some time markers and chapter titles in there. That's going to help you get right to the stuff that's most interesting to you. Now, in none of my videos do I talk about how the technique actually is done. I mean, I don't talk in detail about the Vipassana technique and the steps you take and what you're actually doing during the meditation. But I am going to talk in general about how the technique works, because that's what gives you a unique experience each time, and that's how you can get a unique set of results every time. If you're interested in learning the Vipassana technique as taught by S.N. Goenka, then the 10-day course is for you. That's what it's designed for. To learn the technique properly takes time and commitment and a very special kind of environment. So all of that is what you get at the 10-day course. Now, there are probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different meditation techniques. Some of them only involve like the surface layers of your mind, and they don't require much effort. Other techniques go a little bit deeper into your mind and they take more effort. And then other techniques like Vipassana go very deep into your mind and they take a lot of work, and they are transcendental in nature, which means I'm not talking about transcendental meditation like the trademarked TM or transcendental meditation that you've probably heard other people talking about. But I am saying that Vipassana is one of the techniques that is transcendental in nature, which means that you are transcending your ego, you're transcending your analytical mind, and you're going down into the depths of your subconscious mind, from where the personality emerges. So when you do the 10-day course, you're going deep down in there into your mind, and you're actually making real, true, lasting changes in your personality. And as a result of your personality changing, there's an outward ripple effect so that it ends up touching every aspect of your life. So as a result, great transformation can happen as a result, like personal transformation, really dramatic, in some cases radical transformation is possible in people's lives. And that's why people keep going back to take the course. I mean, in order to learn the technique, you have to take the course, because that's the only way to learn it. But then once you have learned it at the 10-day course, it's recommended that you maintain a daily practice of 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. That's a big commitment that, quite frankly, a lot of Vipassana students don't make. I mean, a lot of us don't do 2 hours a day. I don't. Some people do 1 hour a day. Some people do a few hours a week or a few hours a month, or whatever they can fit into their lifestyle. So it doesn't really surprise anyone to know that the more you do it, the more benefits you get. So the more frequently and the more regularly you practice, the better off you'll be. But because the 10-day course is so intense and you're doing about 100 hours of meditation, and you're in a special environment that's designed to eliminate distractions and help you go really deep, people will go back and take the course over and over and over again. A lot of people do it once a year. And that's what I did. I did 4 courses over 4 consecutive years. And even though I tried to start up and maintain a home practice, I was never successful with that. But regardless, I did the annual course and I got great results. And that's what this video is about. So in this video, I'm going to describe my experience on the first course, the second course, and the third course. And I'm also going to tell you what the specific changes in my personality were as a result and how that benefited me. But I'm not talking about my fourth course, because that one was so different than the first 3 that I'm doing a whole other video about that. So that's going to be the next video in this series. Yeah, so keep your eye out for that one. That'll be interesting. I actually meant to say this a little bit earlier. We're talking about going down into the depths of your subconscious mind from where the personality emerges. I just want to highlight here that if you have, let's say you have 10 people and they all grew up in the same environment, like, same culture, same class, same like sports activities or whatever, but they all go to take the course, they can have 10 radically different experiences and 10 very different changes in their personality as a result, because your personality is so complex and there's so many factors that go into what's going to form your personality. So that could be, I think that includes the environment you were raised in, the environments you lived in throughout your life, your level of self-awareness, your life experiences, and in some cases even certain types of like exposure to certain chemicals, and your genetic expression. I mean, and there's probably other factors too, but I mean, there's so much that goes into what's going to determine your personality. So every time you go, you're going to be making changes, and it's going to be different every time. But there's also going to be some changes that you might get the same changes every time. They'll just keep furthering the degree to which those changes are happening in your mind. One of the main intentions of doing Vipassana meditation is to purify your mind. And as Goenka says, it eradicates the defilements of your mind. And he also says that, God, I loved it when he said this, your psychological wounds rise to the surface so that the pus can come out. So everyone has psychological wounds. If you're living on this planet, you probably have some sort of, when I was a kid, we used to say, what's your damage? Like everyone has some sort of damage, right? So we have these wounds deep in our subconscious mind, and the pus from those wounds is in there. So it's affecting our personality. It's affecting the way we think, the way we perceive ourselves in the world, the way we react to certain situations. So when you do this 10-day course, you're going deep. And even though you don't have any specific intentions about what you're going to change within yourself, you don't have to know, because the process works naturally. Your mind sort of goes through this process all by itself. So these wounds are coming up. You're not going to know which wounds they are. But when the pus comes out, what happens is these experiences come to the surface, which means you become conscious and aware of them. And then you have an emotional experience. So you might be dealing with that emotional experience, that pus, so to speak, for maybe it's minutes, hours, days. They might show up in your dreams at night. You might experience any form of sensory hallucination. Needless to say, the 10-day Vipassana course is a very rich emotional experience. And the best way to go into that first course is just to be prepared for anything and be open to everything, because it can get a little trippy. But as long as you know that you're safe, you're being looked after by the course managers and the assistant teachers, and it's part of the process, and on the other side, when you go home, you will see how it has been worth it. As long as you're in the right frame of mind to take the course, it should be worth it. Another little note about the dreams that you might have during the course. It is not uncommon for people to have extremely vivid dreams during the course, because, the human psyche is a really complex place. Dreamland is really interesting to begin with. So all kinds of stuff is going to come up. And I had dreams, even during my first course, years ago, I still remember some of those dreams in detail. And I've never had that happen in my life before. Just be prepared for some dreams. You might have nightmares too. And like when I mentioned the hallucinations, they might be pleasant hallucinations, they might be unpleasant. So in my first course, I had a really scary one where I was meditating in my room, and all of a sudden there were like these giant rats, like this big, that were crawling up the bed, crawling up onto me. That was really scary. But when I had nice ones, it was beautiful. Like there was one where it was a horse, a beautiful horse, a white horse in a field of flowers, and the horse went up on its hind legs and it was doing this kind of motion with its front legs, and then all of a sudden wings sprouted from its back, and the wings were white feathers and they were flapping, and it was just beautiful. So you might have all kinds of cool experiences. Just don't be afraid of it. Just go with it. Another thing that you might experience or witness other people experiencing is, well, crying. It's not unusual for someone to start crying uncontrollably during the meditation in the meditation hall. And if that happens to you, it's okay. Let it out. Remember, the pus from your wounds has to come out. And once it comes up and you let it process and you let it express itself, it should be going away. It should be falling away out of your experience. So let it happen. Even if you're a man, plenty of men cry during the meditations, and I mean, it's just part of it. No one's going to tell you to stop it. No one's going to yell at you for it. You don't have to be ashamed. I experienced some spontaneous crying during the breaks. I was out in the walking area, just walking around, taking a break, and all of a sudden I would start crying. And it was interesting because I didn't have any specific thoughts attached to the crying, and there were also no emotions attached. It was like my body was crying without emotion. The tears were coming out. And it was really weird because I've never had that happen before, but I knew that it was part of the process. So just let your body and your mind take you on this journey. It has this deep, innate wisdom that it just knows how to take you through this process. It's pretty cool. And every time you take the course, I mean, if you take it more than once, different things are going to come up for you. And like I just described, it might be emotions coming up or crying happening without you knowing what it's about, or you might know exactly what it's about. You might have memories coming back, maybe things you forgot about. It's different every time. And I don't know how the mind determines what's going to come up to the surface. I've heard it said that whatever most needs to be cleared out at any moment is what's going to come to the surface. But I don't know if that's true or not. And I don't even care. I mean, I trust the process, and I've been through it enough times to know that it works. So, like I mentioned before, some people take the course year after year after year or multiple times a year. And those people are actually some of the coolest people I've ever met. I mean, they're just different. You can tell they're calm, they're relaxed, they're happy, they're content, they're loving. They're really great people. But if you only take the course once, that's fine. I mean, in my first course, as we'll see in a little bit, I'm going to get into more detail about that. After my first course, I experienced so many changes, and a lot of them really significant. So I just want to encourage you to try it out. If you're in the right frame of mind to do it and you're curious, why not? It's not going to hurt you. It can only help you. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about how my first, second, and third courses were different experiences. And I have my notes over here. So let's see here. During my first course, I did have problems focusing during the first several days. I was really distracted by all the things around me that I was observing, or rather I should say I allowed myself to be distracted, but that kind of got in the way in the first few days. And I was also distracted by the physical pain and discomfort that I was experiencing because I hadn't really practiced my sitting posture very much ahead of time, and I didn't really know what kinds of props they were going to have that I could use. So it was a lot better for the second course and third and fourth course. But that first course, the first few days, I had a lot of distractions. But I did my best. I gave a good effort. I focused very well when I could, and I got a good amount of meditation in during those first few days. And for that first course, I went there with the intention of getting up for every single one of the 4:30 a.m. meditations, but I didn't really do very well with that intention because nobody makes you go to the meditation hall for the 4:30 a.m. meditation. So I stayed in my room a lot and I just slept and I got up later. But even despite all that, I still had a lot of really good benefits from the work that I was able to do. So if that happens to you, don't worry about it too much. Just do your best. Another thing that was weird during that first course was, I don't know if all the Vipassana meditation centers have this, but the one where I went, which was at Dhamma Brothers in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts, they have meditation cells, and all the students are assigned a cell. It's really just a small room where you can go sit and be alone and meditate so that you have fewer distractions. So when you're in the meditation hall, like I mentioned in a prior video, you're hearing all the sounds from the people moving around and coughing and sneezing, and the sound of their clothing as they move and all that stuff. But in the meditation cell, it's really quiet, which sounds great. But what was really surprising to me was that when I got into that cell, it was so quiet that I found it really unnerving. Like, I had never been in an environment that quiet before, with no sound. In that part of the building, so first of all, you're not allowed to wear shoes in certain parts of the building. So you're in your socks or bare feet, and it's wall-to-wall carpet, and they have a really thick carpet pad underneath. And then, so it's wall-to-wall carpet, and you go into the cell, and there's a cushion there for you to sit on. You can bring in with you blankets, other cushions, or a meditation bench, whatever you want. But you just sit in there, and there's a light that you can turn on, like a little night light, or you can have it be dark. And you can't hear anything. There's nothing making any sound. It was so quiet. And the other part of that was that as a result of it being so quiet, I could hear my own breathing really loud, and it was just altogether really uncomfortable for me. So I tried it. I didn't even stay in there for a whole session. I think I relocated. I either went back to the meditation hall or I went to my room to meditate. And for the whole rest of that course, I didn't go back in that cell. Another funny thing during the very first course for me was that I was really affected by the boredom. Like, there are breaks. You can go outside, you can walk around, you can sit. There's really not that much to do during the breaks. And I got bored of it, and I spent a lot of that break time just in my room, kind of like, I don't know, I was reading the labels on my toothpaste and my shampoo, reading them again, kind of wishing I had brought more things that had labels on them, because I was just like so bored. But that was an adjustment, and I think by the time I went to the second course, I was prepared for that, and it wasn't really a problem. But those were the issues I encountered during the very first course. Now, my second course was really interesting. Everything was going great up until like the last third of the course. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, I started feeling really angry, like angry about nothing, just angry. I just felt the anger, and it wasn't connected to anything. I was just angry, and I was feeling irritable and like antisocial and just a bad mood, really bad mood. And while I couldn't specify any like particular thing that was about, I knew that it was part of the process. So I did my best to be patient with it and just wait it out, but it got pretty strong. For example, on the very last day, on day 10, when noble silence is lifted and people can talk to each other, that's usually a great day. I mean, people are usually feeling very lighthearted and joyful and happy, because by the time you reach the end of the course, a lot of people have sort of come full circle and they're just feeling great. But for me that time, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't even want to hear. I got annoyed by hearing people laughing. I mean, I went out for a walk. I'm like, I'm just going to go for a walk out there in the woods. But that didn't last very long, because I didn't want to have to look at anyone in the eye when I passed them and smile. I didn't want to have to say hi. So I just went back into my room. And then I'm in my room. I can hear all the people in the hallway and outside. They're talking and laughing. And I was just like hating it. But it was okay, because, I mean, it's part of the process. The pus from my wounds was coming out. So it was okay. But it was definitely a challenge to deal with. And actually, as it turns out, just as suddenly as that bad mood arose, just as quickly it went away. Like on day 11, that morning, when we were actually wrapping up the course and leaving, all of a sudden I felt better. Not just better, I felt great. I felt light and joyful and happy. It was just like that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm so glad I did this. Whereas just a couple days before I was like, I hate this. I don't know why I do this to myself. So you might have all kinds of interesting emotional experiences. Just hang on, enjoy the ride if you can. Just wait it out, be patient with yourself, and trust that it's part of the process. And even though it's very mysterious, you don't have to understand how it's working in order to know that it is working. Oh, and for that second course, I did have more success at getting up for the 4:30 a.m. meditations and using the meditation cell. Still not as much as I wanted to going into it, but definitely a lot better than on the first course. And I set my goal for the third course to do an even better job. So let's talk about the third course, right? In the third course, things were going really well. I mean, I experienced none of the challenges that I had during the first two courses, and things were going so smoothly. Like I wasn't even having nightmares. I wasn't having strong negative emotions. I was just meditating and focusing and going through the steps of the meditation process. And I started worrying because I was expecting there would be some challenges. But because things were going so smoothly, I started wondering, oh, am I actually not doing this right? Which I knew wasn't true because the steps are very clearly laid out and I knew I was doing those steps. But it was just going so well that I was like worried maybe I wasn't going deep enough, or maybe I was somehow doing it wrong and I wasn't going to get a lot of benefits from it. But when I went home, I soon found out that I had done a good job because I did get a lot of good benefits from it. It just turned out that it was a great experience. Very different from the course 1 and course 2. During all of those 3 courses, I always had moments when I wanted to leave early. And those moments didn't last very long, but they definitely popped up because, I don't know, it's hard. It's really hard work. And before I even went to my first course, my sister had warned me about this because she had already taken the course 3 times. So I showed up for my first course and she had prepped me. She said that every time she took the course, she wanted to leave. And I didn't get it. I'm like, why? Why would you want to go after all you went through to make the time, to register, to prepare? It's a big deal. Why would you want to leave? And she couldn't really explain it. She goes, well, you'll see. And that's what happened. I showed up for my first course, so excited about it. And then, I don't know what day of the course it was. It was at least a few days in, maybe toward the second half of the course. I hit that moment where I'm like, I want to go home. I hate this. This is hard. This sucks. I'm tired of being tortured. I mean, it's not really torture, but it's hard. It feels like torture sometimes. And I had that moment. And I had that moment again in the course 2 and again in course 3. But the moments didn't last very long. I was able to turn my thoughts around pretty quickly, convince myself to stay. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did. But a lot of people want to leave early. So just go into that prepared. It might happen to you. And in the video that I made called How to Prepare Mentally for Your First Course, I talk about that more. Okay, now we're getting to the really good stuff, right? This is what you wanted to know. Why do this? Why put yourself through all this grueling work, potentially mental torture, physical pain, discomfort? Why? Because the benefits are amazing. If you go there and you give it a good effort and you do a good job and you're disciplined, you can transform your life by transforming your personality. It's really amazing. So I have my notes here. I'm gonna refer to these notes and tell you specifically how I was changed after each of the first 3 courses and what happened. And because I know that this is a long video and there might be people skipping around rather than watching from beginning to end, I'm going to say again a second time that the more you put into this, the more you'll get out of it. So the more you can manage during the course to focus on the meditation and do what you're supposed to be doing. And also, once you get home, the more frequently and regularly you maintain your Vipassana practice, the greater the benefits will be. So the more you put in, the more you get out. Now, there can be some dramatic and radical transformations in people's lives, because if let's say you do the 10-day course and then you go home and you maintain a regular practice like they recommend, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, every day, that's a lot of work. So that's a lot of transformation. And because you're changing your personality, there's this outward ripple effect, because your personality affects pretty much everything. It affects how you think, how you speak, the choices you make, your perspective on the world, your decision making, everything. So if you really go all in on this, congratulations, because your life is about to get amazing. I mean, this is why so many people go back and take the course again and again and again. It's really cool shit, but it's hard. And to me, the magical part of all this is when you get home from the course, you start observing what these changes in your personality are. I mean, when you're taking the course, you don't know how you're going to change. And you're putting in the work. You can tell that your psychological wounds are coming to the surface and the pus is coming out. But for a lot of that time, when you're dealing with that stuff, you're not aware of specifically how it's going to manifest in your day-to-day life. So you're at the course, you do the work. You might feel at that point that it's needless torture, but stick it out. Do the whole course, because then when you get home, now you're back in your regular day-to-day life, and you find yourself in all kinds of different situations. A lot of them are routine, right? You might have a job you go to every day, or there's certain people you see on the regular basis, there's certain places you go, certain things you do, and you're in the routine of your life. But what happens is you'll find yourself in the same kind of situation or scenario that you are in typically, but you witness yourself reacting differently. You might say things differently, you might have different emotional responses, you notice your brain working differently. It's really cool. To me, it feels like magic, because it's a change for the better, and that's really cool, but it seemingly changed without you having to do anything, because you did the work in the past, not knowing how it would affect you. So when the effects show up, it's like magic. I don't know, it just seems like magic to me. It's really cool. And those are delightful moments, at least in my life, to realize, oh, I'm different now. That's new. That's cool. I like that a lot better. I like being like this a lot better than the way I used to be. So those are the moments. And it might take weeks or months before you discover all the changes, because maybe there's a situation that has to come up in order to show you how you've changed, but that situation doesn't come up for a while. So it's like the gift that keeps on giving. It's really cool. If you take the course more than once, you might notice that you get the same change to your personality. It's just that after each course, it's to a greater and greater degree. So for example, in my case, after each of the first, second, and third courses, I noticed myself being less judgmental, more confident, more patient, and more self-aware. It's just that every time I took the course, every year, I would get more confident, and then more confident, and more confident, less judgmental, even less judgmental, even less judgmental, more patient, more patient, more patient, and it just grows and grows. So you might have that happen to you. And all the changes that happen to your personality, they're all changes for the better. So it's really neat. I mean, nobody is taking this course and coming out the other side more of an asshole. You know, like, you're not going to go in, take the course, show up as a nice person, and leave as a mean person. That just doesn't happen. And if it does happen, I'm guessing that you might be, maybe you're not in the right psychological state to take the course. Maybe you have some mental health challenges going on. Maybe there's other stuff going on in your life that are causing those things to happen. So really what should be happening to you is that you should be improving as a person. Good changes. Okay, so the specific changes for each course. After my first course, it was really amazing. This was like the most dramatic transformation for me out of the 3 courses. Even after having experienced the challenges that I described to you a little bit earlier on, it still worked really well for me. So here are some of the benefits that I got. Right away, like I mentioned, I noticed an increase in my confidence and just being more comfortable in my own skin. In fact, the very first thing I did after I left that meditation center, after the first course, was I went to the diner to get breakfast. And for the first time in my life, I went to the restaurant alone. I sat by myself and ate alone, which I don't remember if this is something I had planned ahead of time or not. But when I left that course on, the morning of day 11, I was hungry. And I had gone to college nearby, so I knew where the diner was. And I remember I used to go there during college. I just loved this particular meal that I would get. So I'm like, I'm going to go back there. And then I realized, I don't care if I'm alone. Whereas in the past, I never would have gone to a restaurant alone. I would feel too uncomfortable to sit by myself because I would be imagining that the other people around me would see me alone and feel sorry for me or feel bad for me. I would just be too self-conscious. But now all of a sudden, I didn't care. I was more comfortable in my skin. I was perfectly comfortable sitting there alone. I had a great meal. And I was like, wow, that's new. That's really cool. I loved it. So that was awesome. I thought that was really cool. And then I also noticed feeling less self-conscious in general. For example, while going grocery shopping. I think the first time I went grocery shopping after that first course, I realized that I wasn't worried about the people that I would pass in the aisles. Like if I had messy hair or like a frumpy outfit, or if I don't know, if they caught me like singing along to the song on the speakers, I didn't care. I was just comfortable to feel relaxed and go grocery shopping. I guess I used to have a lot of self-consciousness and worries about what other people thought of me. But now I was able to just go to the grocery store and shop without any worry, which is, it sounds like a little thing, but it's actually a big change because it allowed me to just relax and just live my life. Like, what's the big deal? You got to go to the grocery store? Just go shopping. Just go run your errands. It's no big deal. Who cares what anyone thinks if you look weird? I probably didn't look weird. I was just so worried about what people would think of me all the time. But now, all of a sudden, I was just more comfortable in my skin, more confident. It was great. It's great. Fantastic change. I was thrilled about that. I also noticed myself having more patience. And this showed up immediately during my drive home because it was like a 2-hour drive. And on the highway, you know what happens. You're on the highway, you see other cars doing weird things or cutting you off maybe or tailgating, or I didn't care. I was like, all right. And that patience remained all the way up until I took my next course. And then after that second course, it furthered itself. Like I was even more patient. So that was another cool change. And at work, I noticed that I was able to concentrate better. And at the time, I was working in cubicle land. You know, you've seen, what's it called? Office space. It's like a sea of cubicles. So everyone's real close. You can hear every conversation. So if someone sitting next to you is on the phone, you can hear what they're saying. But now all of a sudden, I was able to focus on my work. There was a lot of reading involved. So I realized that I could read a long piece of text or like read emails or manuals or whatever I had to read without my attention being pulled away because I was hearing a conversation that someone was having right there, or the person sitting right over there was on the phone. I could just tune them out and focus. So that was great, and that had a nice positive effect on me at work. And I think it took less energy for me to get through the day as well as a result. Oh, this is a big one. I don't know how this works. You take this course, your mind changes, and all of a sudden you're different. It's amazing. I used to be, have you heard of highly sensitive people, or highly sensitive person, or HSP for short? I was an HSP, for sure. I had a big problem with this in my life. You can look up more information about this if you're really interested, but basically, as an HSP, I had a difficult time processing certain types of sensory input. And in my case, that meant either certain loud sounds or certain types of harsh lighting or certain smells, or if I was in an environment that had a high degree of sensory stuff going on, I could only be in that environment for so long before I needed to step away. And it was a real problem. Like, this is more than just being like, oh, I don't like the light, I don't like that smell. It was a real problem. Like, certain smells would trigger actual nausea for me. Certain lights would give me headaches, and I hated being that way. I didn't like do it for the attention. I didn't really try to be very vocal about it. I don't think I was trying to seek attention, but my body physically had a hard time processing certain sensory inputs. And it was especially a problem with certain sounds. I had this thing called misophonia, which means with certain sounds, I would, this is embarrassing, there was such anger that would be triggered in me, like instantly. I would hear a certain kind of a sound, and then all of a sudden I was like almost enraged, really angry. And it was hard for me to deal with because I would either have to leave that environment or I would have to expend a lot of physical energy to just calm down. And this happened at work a lot, so it was something to deal with. But after that first course, I noticed a dramatic reduction in all these reactions. So that was a definite, immediate improvement in my life. And in general, I felt more calm, less worried, and I was expressing more kindness, and laughter came to me more easily and more frequently. I felt happier, and my heart felt lighter. I mean, it was a really nice change in myself. And something that was completely unexpected was that all of a sudden I had a real strong reluctance to kill any bugs. Whereas before the course, if I saw a bug inside, I would kill it right away. And sometimes it was because I'd be afraid of it, like if it was a big scary looking bug, I'd be scared. But now after the course, I was not afraid of spiders anymore, and I pretty much stopped killing bugs. There was one bug that I killed, but right away I felt bad because I realized that if I had just sat for a moment, I could have calmed down and just relocated it. So from that first course on, no longer do I kill bugs. I don't want to. I either leave them alone or I relocate them. They don't bother me. So that was interesting. Now let's talk about the second course. Okay, after my second course, I noticed a further reduction in my misophonia and my other reactions to sensory input. And I think the biggest change that I saw after the second course was how I dealt with conflict and confrontation with people. Before the course, the idea of confronting anyone about anything was such a problem for me that I would avoid it at all costs. I mean, I was a real coward about having a direct communication with somebody. If I had any kind of a conflict or something that I had to resolve with somebody, it would take me sometimes days to psych myself up enough to have the courage to initiate the conversation, especially when I was expecting that that person would get really upset or angry or yell or like call me names or use profanity or shout, like any kind of, even if I just was having to deal with something minor, just any kind of direct confrontation scared the shit out of me. So I would avoid it, and that's not good. That's not a good way to be, you know? But afterwards, after the second course, things changed a lot. Before that course, when an angry person would yell at me, which happened sometimes on the phone because I had somewhat of a customer service job and I'd have to be on the phone with customers sometimes. So, but even in real life, especially in real life because they're right there in front of you, if an angry person yelled at me, I would get cold sweats, I couldn't think clearly, I felt jittery inside, and I felt like I was going to throw up, like the whole time we were having the conversation or the shouting match. And after that confrontation would happen, I would replay that scene in my mind for days or sometimes weeks. Like I just couldn't get it out of my mind. And I would have a stress response to it. And I would take things personally, even if the situation had nothing to do with me really. I would find some kind of way to take it personally and like be offended by it. Also not good. But after the course, suddenly, just like that, I found that I could maintain my composure, remain present, and consider in real time how to handle the situation and to choose my words with intention rather than getting tongue-tied. And I still felt a little jittery inside and my face would still turn red, but it was manageable. And when the encounter was over, I could push it out of my mind a lot quicker, and I didn't take things personally anymore. Like if I knew it wasn't really about me, I was able to let that go. And I was so excited about this change. I was really proud of myself because I knew I had been a coward, and I had shame about that because I knew that I should be able to just have a conversation, just walk up to the person and talk to them. I knew that it was all in my own mind, like I was getting in my own way. And I knew that I wasn't really as mature in that way as I wanted to be or should be. But now the whole game was changed, and now I'm able to like deal with these things. So I was so proud of that change, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't taken that second course. And also, that change having happened allowed me to start getting more practice in with just basic communication skills, like having a direct, uncomfortable conversation. From that point on, I started getting more practice because as things come up, you have to deal with them. So that like started the snowball rolling. And so now, years later, I mean, this situation for me has improved greatly. Now, sometimes, if someone yells at me, like, it doesn't faze me at all. And I can stay calm, and my face doesn't turn red, I don't feel jittery. I'm just like, cool as a cucumber. So it was really cool. After the second course also, I noticed that I didn't become as bored as easily as I did before the second course. So things like waiting on a long line, or maybe you're stuck in a really boring conversation with a person, that just didn't bother me anymore. Like I didn't really get bored. I was just like, okay. And I would just switch to like an observation mode where instead of thinking about how bored I was, I would just start observing things around me and be perfectly content with it. Probably because I got practice during the course being bored. And after the second course, I noticed that I just naturally minded my own business more. And I was less concerned with the choices that other people were making if they were choices that I would not have made if I were them. So in other words, I wasn't concerning myself so much with what other people were doing. You know what I mean? Like this makes for a lot less drama. And after the second course, I had another unexpected change, just like after the first one, where, I don't know where this came from, I had a desire to go vegan. So I changed my diet to a vegan diet, and I did it for 5 weeks, and then that petered out, but that was a surprise to me. So that was kind of neat and fun. Now, after my third course, here are the changes that I witnessed within myself. The first thing I noticed was an increased mental capacity. This showed up at work, of course, where now all of a sudden I was able to work in a stressful environment for longer periods of time before needing a break. And I took fewer breaks, and when I did take a break, they didn't last as long. So basically, I feel like my brain got supercharged. And by the time I reached the end of the workday, I was going home with more energy. Whereas before that course, I would have been depleted more with my energy. So that was really awesome. I also noticed an improved stress response. So I noticed that it took a lot more before I started feeling pressure. And when I did feel pressure, I became aware of it immediately. And I could shake it off much faster. Even better, I think, is that after that third course, I seldom became overwhelmed anymore. Like, it became a rare occurrence for me to become overwhelmed. I mean, it still happened every once in a blue moon, but when it did, again, I could recognize it right away, and I could like calm down a lot faster. And I noticed a difference in my public speaking. Before that course, before the third course, I hated any kind of public speaking. Every once in a while you have to give a presentation at work or whatever situation I might be in. But I think as a result of my increased confidence and more comfort in my own skin and just being more relaxed, I think this is how it showed up with my public speaking. So after that third course, I noticed that it was a lot easier for me to get up in front of a group of people and talk. I mean, I still got nervous, but I could handle it a lot better. And my face would still get red sometimes, but I no longer let that distract me. Like, if I could feel my face getting red, instead of focusing on what I was supposed to be saying, I'd be thinking more about, oh my God, my face is red. They can see it. I must look ridiculous. Everybody knows I'm nervous. But that kind of mental chatter just didn't even happen. And I'm like, oh, my face is red. Okay, fine. I'm just going to keep going. So I think that was pretty neat, because that helps me perform better at work. It's a nice outward ripple effect of these changes. So those are all the changes I noticed after my third course, but I do want to make a note here about my sister. I think I mentioned before I took the first course, my sister had already taken 3 courses. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was because of her taking that course 3 times that she was able to change her personality the way she did. So I used to watch her and be amazed at, just over the course of several years, how much she had like grown and changed. I didn't know it was about the meditation. I was just like, wow, how can she be so calm during the stressful situations? I mean, she was really impressively calm and composed and in dealing with stressful situations. I used to watch her and be amazed. I used to watch her and be amazed and be like, wow, I wish I could be like that. But then later on, I started doing the Vipassana courses, and now I get it, because the same kinds of changes have happened in me. So now I realize what happened to her, and I just think it's pretty cool, because I had that moment in the past where I said, I want to be like that. And now I am like that. And both of us took the course 3 times. Well, I took it 4, but as you'll see in the next video, I didn't really count the 4th course. You'll just have to watch and find out why. In any case, thank you for watching this one. I hope this helps you. And I am curious to know if these videos are helpful. So please leave a comment below, or leave a comment to share anything that you think might be helpful for the other people watching this video. If you've gone to a course, or more than one course, I'm curious to know how it changed you and what your experience was like. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.